Since launching this channel, the response has been overwhelmingly positive. Whether you're a rookie cop, a veteran supervisor, or a civilian trying to make sense of this messy world, it's been humbling to see how my thoughts and ideas seem to have resonated with people. I've spent a career thinking about this stuff. On the street, in roll call, in Facebook arguments, and it's a good feeling to have your voice heard and considered by people in a position to actually move the needle in the right direction. But, as a channel primarily dedicated to the world of law enforcement, with every upload there's a predictable pattern that always shows up in the comments. It doesn't matter how nuanced the take is, it doesn't matter if I'm calling out bad cops, flawed policy, or systemic inefficiencies, there's always a group that shows up with this same script. A loud, bitter, opinionated minority. The cop haters. I'm not talking about the people who critique cops and policing. That's healthy, that's essential. I'm not above criticism, and no person or institution should be. What I'm talking about are the people for whom no cop, no department, and no action taken by law enforcement is ever legitimate. These are the people who willfully refuse to acknowledge any good faith, any reform effort, and any act of bravery or skillful restraint by officers. To these people, law enforcement isn't just flawed, it's evil. And the cops, they're not individuals, they're symbols of everything wrong in the world. These people don't just hate misconduct, they hate the uniform, the badge, and anyone who wears it. And they just can't seem to help themselves from vomiting this hatred all over the comment section of any police-related content they see online. So let's talk about this pathology. Let's dissect the anthropology of the cop hater. We'll start with a classic concept from psychology: projection. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. That's especially true here. Many of these cop haters are projecting unresolved authority issues onto an entire profession. Were they humiliated by an authority figure? A teacher? A cop? Were they beaten by a parent? Fired from a job? Somewhere along the way, someone with power made them feel powerless. And now, every time they see a cop, they see that person. Every encounter is a replay of that unresolved trauma. It's not justice they're after, it's vengeance, disguised as righteous indignation. Then you've got the grifters. These are the race hustlers, professional victims, and activist influencers who figured out that you can monetize outrage. It doesn't matter if they're peddling half-truths, editing videos out of context, or spreading straight-up lies, as long as it stokes the flames and keeps the cash flowing. They don't want reform, they want relevance. They want clicks. Hatred is their business model, and business is a booming. And then you've got the people flying the banner of First Amendment auditors. Some of them, to be fair, are doing real work, stress testing the boundaries of public accountability, educating viewers about civil liberties, and conducting themselves with professionalism. I respect those guys. They know the law, they stay composed, and when they expose misconduct, it's because there was misconduct. As a patrol sergeant, I would regularly use these videos as training material in my roll calls. But for every great video of Class Act First Amendment auditing, there are hundreds of counterfeit ones. What we mostly see are the loudmouth amateurs, guys who barely understand the rights they claim to defend. They bark legal buzzwords they don't understand, go out of their way to escalate minor interactions, and then act persecuted when it backfires. These aren't watchdogs, they're provocateurs. They're not holding power accountable, they're baiting working-class public servants into mistakes for views and settlement checks. I hope the real champions of the Constitution can purge these losers from their ranks, because they discredit legitimate activism by turning public accountability into a circus. They're not defending the Constitution, they're desecrating it for ad revenue. I've noticed a tendency, especially among some of my BoomerCon colleagues, to write off every cop hater as a left-wing liberal snowflake, or some caricature ripped straight out of a Fox News monologue. But things aren't that simple. The politics of cop haters aren't linear. They're chaotic, reactionary, and often self-contradictory. For every social justice warrior quoting Marx, there's a sovereign citizen quoting admiralty law to a cop he believes has no jurisdiction over him. You've got collectivist radicals who see cops as the violent arm of systemic racism and oppression. Then you've got the libertarians and ANCAPs who think every badge is a boot on the neck of personal freedom. Horseshoe theory is the idea that the far left and the far right, despite hating each other, end up looking eerily similar in their behavior and worldview. Both claim to stand for the people against some looming corrupt power, and both, when pushed far enough, come to see cops not as individuals but as enemies of their imagined utopia. So no, this isn't a left versus right issue. It's a radical versus reality issue. The great Thomas Sowell once said, "When people get used to preferential treatment, equal treatment seems like discrimination. For some people, the idea of equal application of the law feels like oppression. They've been sold the narrative that any encounter with law enforcement is inherently racist, unjust, or violent. So when a cop makes an arrest or uses force, even justifiably, it's framed as proof of a broken system. Facts don't matter, context doesn't matter, it's narrative above all else. This is tribalism. It's not about justice, it's about identity. It's us versus them. And when your tribe is built around a shared sense of victimhood, you need an oppressor to make sense of your worldview. That's why, even when body cam footage debunks their claims, they double down. Because admitting the truth means losing the only identity they've built for themselves." Now, let me be clear again. The profession is not perfect. It's a messy, complicated business. And the purpose of this channel is to speak directly to the people who can and do make a difference every day. There are dirty cops. There is abuse of power. There are things that need fixing, from policy to training to culture. I have and will continue to call those things out. Most good cops do. We don't want bad officers either. They put us all in danger and tarnish the badge. But what cop haters don't understand, or refuse to understand, is that constructive criticism and unfiltered hatred are two different things. One builds, the other destroys. Criticism says, "This policy is harmful. Here's how we fix it." Hatred says, "All cops are bastards." Criticism says, "That officer used excessive force and should be held accountable." Hatred says, "Pigs in a blanket, fry 'em like bacon." See the difference? What cop haters conveniently ignore is the overwhelming number of times things don't go wrong. The thousands of arrests, traffic stops, wellness checks, domestic violence calls, and crisis interventions that are handled with professionalism and compassion. The split-second decisions that save lives. The empathy, the de-escalation, the suicides prevented, the overdoses reversed, the kids pulled out of abusive homes. But these stories don't fit the narrative, so they're buried, ignored, and mocked. To the cop haters, a good cop isn't just invisible, he's impossible, because if they admit one good cop exists, they have to admit their whole worldview might just be a little flawed. And that's too painful. That requires introspection, humility, and the ability to hold two ideas at once. That cops can be both flawed and honorable, that the institution can be imperfect and necessary. So what do we do with all this? We call it what it is. We stop giving unearned credibility to idiots who thrive on drama and chaos. We stop pretending every critic is operating in good faith. And we stop apologizing for wanting law and order to coexist with accountability. To the cop haters out there, no, you're not brave, you're not revolutionary, you're not nuanced. You're stuck in a feedback loop of bitterness, self-righteousness, and confirmation bias. And to everyone else, civilians, cops, policymakers, keep your eyes open. Don't fall for easy answers. Don't mistake the volume of the background noise for the truth. And don't ever forget, real reform doesn't come from hate. It comes from the courage to face hard truths, have uncomfortable conversations, and build something better. God bless America, and long live the Republic.